The 7 most important fingering tips for pianists. In this video I will reveal what you have to pay attention to if you want to choose the right fingerings for your piano performances. Hello, my name is Aaron Pilsan. I'm in the beautiful Marvão in Portugal, where I've just performed at the Marvão International Music Festival, and I will share with you the 7 most important tips about fingering at the piano. So first of all, you have to be conscious about it. Especially if you are a beginner or an amateur pianist, it's very important that you learn on what you have to pay attention to and that you don't just start playing a piece. That you actually take the time, especially in the beginning when you start learning a piece, that you figure out the most difficult passages and that you figure out what kind of fingers you have to use for which passages. So that you actually don't just play the fingers by incident, but that you start from the beginning with the right fingers and that you don't change them. The second thing is that you have to know that each finger has an own personality. So the thumb obviously is a very strong but short finger, so not so flexible, but you can use it for strong chords. The second and third finger are obviously the best ones, and then the fourth one is the weakest finger for every pianist, and also the fifth one is very weak, although you have to use it a lot, both in the left and the right hand, and you have to learn which fingers you have to use for which passages. So which fingers you need for scales, which fingers you need for thirds, for fifths, for octaves, for jumps, for repetitions. Every hand is a little bit individual, so you have to really learn also about your own fingers. A mentor can help you tremendously in finding out what is best for your hands. Also the size, of course, is important in this matter, but it's very important first of all to understand which finger has which strengths and which weaknesses. For example, the thumb is strong but also clumsy. The fourth finger is very flexible but weak, and yeah, you have to learn about each finger to then choose the right fingering for your pieces. The third idea is that you should not follow bad suggestion from scores. Unfortunately, there are a lot of piano scores that have really bad fingerings in there. The reason for that is that the editions often hire pianists to do the fingerings, and some of those pianists don't even play a lot themselves, and they don't have the experience. They just theoretically write something there, what works in theory, but they've never really tried it out themselves. Or maybe they have, but they're not playing it well, I don't know. I've seen it so many times that the fingerings are also not so good, and also it's a very individual thing. So just for an example, I've been playing here the Well-Tempered Clavier, and Sir Andras Schiff is one of my biggest idols with that work. And I also have his edition with his fingerings, and they're really great, but I don't often use them. I often use my own things, and there are specific rules that you have to follow with the right fingerings. I will also share a little bit of that here. Not everything, of course, that's for my mentees. But apart from that rules, you know, the things are really individual, and some of those editions can actually harm you and bring problems to you, especially if your hand is not fitted for the fingerings that are suggested there. The fourth one is you should not do spontaneous changes before concerts, especially not on the day or a few hours before the concert. Even if you find out that something hasn't been working well for you, you should not change it just a few minutes before, because your brain saves all those movements, subconsciousness, and you can do things consciously, but if you start thinking about that in the concert, you'll be very insecure and you'll often have problems and make mistakes, because you should always do in the concert what you're basically used to, even if some things might not be the best thing you have experienced so far. Only if you're a very high level musician you can change musical details, in the performance itself, but I would never really change fingerings just spontaneously. That's a really bad idea. So you have to figure out the fingerings way before. The best is weeks or months before you perform something, then you're on the safe side. The fifth rule I have here basically is about the thumbs, because the thumbs, as I've said, are very clumsy and short. So especially in early period music, people try to avoid thumbs altogether. On organs, for example, later on they try to avoid thumbs on black keys. So that's something I often teach for Baroque music, but of course there you also have to make individual choices, because there are some pieces, for example by Johann Sebastian Bach in F sharp major, where you definitely have to use the thumbs. But just as a general rule, that you don't want to play too many thumbs on black keys, especially in classical music. Later on that changes a little bit, which brings me also to the rule number 6, which is that you have to follow pattern and sequences. For example, if it's very complicated, I would not choose different fingerings for the same patterns, but always choose the same one, like copy paste. That's much easier for your brain. Again, you don't have to think about the things consciously. It's a subconscious thing, and if you have to think about it, you know, it might work out in your practice, but not if you have to perform something, because there's simply no time to think about the things consciously. And then I have a last rule also for fingerings, and that is especially true for the first and fifth fingers, that you actually train your fingers and muscles there to use your fingers individually, and you use the finger muscles and not your arm. And that will also influence your fingering in many cases, because if you use your arm, you know, you will choose the fifth and first finger sometimes to do something. This is a mistake I often see, especially in beginner pianists, that you use a lot of arm movement for some basses or for some other things. And you have to avoid this to actually train your fingers, and then you will also use your fingers in a more elaborate way. So let's sum up these things I've actually written down on my phone, because it was not so easy to come up with this, but it's very complex and important that you follow those. The first thing is, be conscious about your fingering. Don't just arbitrarily play something. The second one is accept the personality of each finger and train it. Then don't follow bad suggestion scores. No spontaneous changes before concerts. Thumb on black keys are not often a good idea, especially in classical music. Follow patterns with the same fingerings and use your fingers and not only arms. So what I want you to do now is to write into the comments which of those helped you the most, because I really read all the comments myself and I also use them for further videos. And of course, if you really want to learn about specific fingerings in pieces, you know, also about your individual situation, what you have to do with your hand and what you have to do in different styles and with different pieces, what you have to do with octaves, what you have to do with scales and everything like that, then please apply for a free strategy session where we figure out exactly where you are at the moment, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and also how your hand is built, so that we understand which fingers work the best for you in which passages. And then we can apply that together if you want, but you can also apply that yourself. So apply for that free strategy session now. You find the link here. It's on aaronpilsan.com/academy, and I will go and have dinner now with my girlfriend here in this beautiful Portuguese village. And yeah, that's it. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, and see you again in the next video. Thank you.